Yep, doing great. I think we're about to be good. And then, do you know where the minute 22 is she here or I guess the room that he had. Perfect. Okay, sounds good. I will get the link going and then send it to her, and then we'll be good to go. Cool. All right.
What, Rainy? Good to see you. I look really smart. Oh, what I was gonna say, I was like, don't wait until next week.
What's gonna happen?
So smart.
What's gonna happen?
More sensors. Honestly, though, yeah, I like how easy it is. I'm done. I've been pulled away. Nobody else.
He told me no, but he told me before he started. I said, "Where'd you get it from?" He said, "It's like 2,000." You know, he but I told him that when I see him because in the notes,
I was even available. Oh, I gotta go say that.
Yeah.
Yes, I large.
Yeah.
They're taking back later. I think that you're outside.
You are chilling. You okay?
Doing great.
Okay. Do you have some? The baby, I know. I want you. I mean, it's a valid question. Let's just be honest. At this point, it's a valid question.
get started.
I'm sorry. What else? Oh, there's my mom.
Good evening, everybody.
She did.
Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started in about 5 minutes, and so if you could get your drinks, your food, find a seat, that would be great.
You were trying to.
Do the live stream? Thank you. Very kind of you.
We have it on the calendar. And the resource? Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I've gone through. Yes, ma'am. Nice to meet you. I mean, I think I'm going to drink with If everyone could please find their seats.
Nice to meet you. We'll see you. And here's one of my cards. You don't have it already.
Yeah, do the far thing.
Doing a good job being quiet. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight to remember my dad. I know some of you have traveled from across the world, and many of you from across the country, and don't take it lightly. Our family is honored that every single one of you is here tonight, and my dad is honored too. We especially want to thank John Caruth and Heather Stowe and all of the Vail staff and this incredible culinary team that has volunteered countless hours and tons of resources to put on an event like this. Thank you very much. A quick note about the program. We expect it to take about 90 minutes, and we're not going to have any breaks, and the transitions should happen pretty fast. And so if you need to get up to grab a drink or use the restroom while people are sharing, please feel free to do so. And if for any reason you need to leave early, that's okay. We're not going to be offended, I promise. I wanted to share a quick story about the night after my dad died. A lot of us were sitting around the table after dinner, and we were just sharing stories and anything that came to mind. And my sister, Summer, she started telling us about how when she was in college, every once in a while, when my dad had to travel for the district, he'd get a reimbursement check for his expenses. And then he would forward that money on to Summer with a note that said, I love you, and I'm thinking about you. And when she finished her story, we all stared at her. Utter disbelief. And we said, Dad never sent us any money when we were in college. and we always joked about Summer being the favorite, but now we had this irrefutable evidence. But the truth is, actually, I have to confess, one time I did get some money from my parents when I was away at school. I got a letter from them, which was kind of rare, and I opened it up, and there's $150 cash inside. It was a lot of money for me at that time. And then there was a note, and I took the note out, and the note read, Everett, we sold your dog Clyde to a really nice guy. Here's the money from the state. We laughed a lot that night, and we cried too. And it was a really good and beautiful way to remember my dad. One of my siblings afterwards said, I really just wish everyone coming to his funeral could have sat in on this night. It was so good. And really that's what this gathering tonight is all about. It's just a bigger table, a much bigger table. So tonight we're gonna remember the whole of who Calvin Baker was and what he meant to us. And I know that we loved my dad and that all of you did too, and that's why you're here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Everett. My name is John Caruth. I haven't had an opportunity to meet you. It is my distinct honor to serve our school district and our community as superintendent of schools. Some might say I'm the fool that followed Cal. Some have said I'm the fool that followed Cal. But I want to talk to you a little bit about what it means for those of us who have the opportunity to work alongside him. And I can't think of a more fitting place to celebrate his life or continue to celebrate his life than here at Micah Mountain High School. You see, Vail is a place that is a living embodiment of a man that I cannot think of in any other organization. Who we are and what we do is an honest-to-goodness reflection of Calvin Baker. More importantly, those of us who work here are reflected in his image through all of the work that we continue to do. So many of Cal's core values are easy to find as you walk onto this campus or any one of our campuses, and as you greet people in the front offices, or you interact with any of our staff, whether that be a custodian, a bus driver, a principal, or another front office folks. Those values hang on posters on our walls, things like service to others above ourselves, respect, trust, hard work, forgiveness, and mercy. Calvin lived those values. We know that. We've heard stories about that. But it was and his incredible focus that put them into action. And it called us to join him too. Mostly called us. Sometimes there was some goading. One of the most common responses I still get 6 years later when people learn that I'm the superintendent is, "Oh, you've got big shoes to fill." Well, no duh. I knew what I was getting into, and frankly, it wasn't the size of his shoes. In fact, there's many ordinary things about Cal, but his feet were really only like 10.5. It was the darn pace of those feet and those shoes that scared the heck out of me. Most of you know, we've heard stories about Calvin's love for running. It was a metaphor in many ways for his life. He loved to run Boston marathons, rim to rim. And I think one of the things that was most dear to his heart, scrambling through trails and over the mountains and ridges of our beloved Vail Valley. Frankly, I think running was also a way for him to cope with his adult onset ADHD, but that's another story. At some point, though, as I worked alongside him for over 20 years, I thought, you know what, maybe I should run too. I used to be pretty athletic, but I was horribly out of shape. So I started quietly, and he found out, and then he was relentlessly encouraging and annoyingly goading. And eventually, I began to match his pace, surprising to me. And I joined him on so many of those adventures that I described. I also began to understand the rewards and benefits of hard-earned lessons that reveal themselves only on the other side of challenge and struggle. Sometimes comically so, as I know I am not the only person in this room who's had near-death experiences where Calvin starred as the main character. Some of my fondest memories, though, of Calvin were our evening runs after work, just on a standard night. We had this great 6-mile trail out from the back of the district office, ran down to a little watering tank that overlooked the Rincon Valley. And I remember our topics on those runs as we went. They would go from everything from untangling these incredibly complex, messy situations or dreaming up new schemes, or my favorite, simply talking about our family and life. And I remember, I still have it in my head, the sound of us running back towards the office at twilight in sync. I have a vivid memory of one evening finishing up with him. I don't remember the exact details of the conversation, but this I do remember. We were talking about how grateful we are to be able to do this work such meaningful work alongside such beautiful and amazing people in our community. I know this because it was a frequent topic of our conversations. Cal was always stunned by that. And he shared a story about that quiet reflection from his dad, from a time when he was a young boy growing up on a farm in Minnesota. And it was also an evening in the early fall, and he caught a glimpse of his dad after a long, hard work day out amongst the rows of the crops as they were thriving and nearing harvest time. And his dad was walking just through the crops, one hand above them. Cal thought for the first time, my dad's admiring his work. He was admiring the blessing that would provide the collective, that collective heart, and he was admiring the good fortune that made it possible. So this I know about Cal. He may not have been a farmer of crops like his dad, but he was a farmer of people. And we in this room are his harvest. And we strive to be a blessing, not because that's what he taught us or was his aim, but as he taught us, we strive to be a more capable blessing to God and those we serve. Thank you.
You added a picture, I think. So I want to take a moment first to talk about these pictures. The one on your far left there is one that I did not choose. So that's just me graduating boot camp from the Marine Corps. But this picture on the far right is a picture shortly following the day that my sister and I, Renee, were adopted together. The picture on the left is my dad walking my daughter Madison into her first day in preschool. And I chose these pictures because it shows that the legacy my father chose to create was family, both with the school district and our family. You'll note, I do not have a lot of notes. I spent days trying to figure out what to say, create a summation of my experiences with my father, my feelings, and my thoughts on him, and it seemed an impossible task. So instead, I'm going to share a speech. Anybody who has been around the military, has served in the military, or witnessed a retirement ceremony will know this speech. It is called the Watch. The Watch is used to signify a lifetime of service, followed by the passing of the torch. When we were in the hospital, as my father was fading away, to keep my mind off of it, I rewrote it to symbolize him. So I will read this now. So our Father has stood the watch. While we slept through the night, our Father stood the watch. While we were learning, growing, and finding our way, our Father stood the watch. Even before some of us understood the world that we were born into, he stood the watch. In times when uncertainty and hardship gathered on our horizon, our Father stood the watch. Many times he would look towards home and see his family waiting, needing his guidance, needing his strength, needing the steady hand to hold during difficult moments. But still, he stood the watch. He stood the watch so that his family could feel safe, so that his children could rest without worry, knowing someone strong was always there. So today we are here to say, Father, the watch stands relieved by those you have raised, those you have taught, guided, and led. Father, you stand relieved. We have the watch. Stand by, the watch is past, and our Father is going home. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Juan Siscomani, and I don't look like the Bakers, so you know I'm not part of the family immediately, but I do consider myself as part of the extended family. Cal and Nancy, thank you so much for all that you've always done for our community. To, of course, Nancy and all 6 kids and grandchildren as well. It's been a beautiful time to be able to, with my wife and I, who we also have 6 kids, enjoy the service that we just did. A lot was shared about Cal that many of us didn't know, so we appreciated you making us part of that and opening up the service and the stories to remember him the way that we just did. And as I was driving here, I told my wife, I said, the last time I saw Cal, had lunch at Beyond Breath on the east side. And I was walking out and I saw Cal sitting there, and he was by himself. I think he was waiting for someone. And it's, it wasn't too long ago, so he's in the middle of a fight. And even in that moment, he had a smile to give. My wife said, I remember the last time that I hung out with him, it was at an event, the chamber event, this was a few years ago. She said we were chatting there about running. My wife's a runner, so she was asking him for advice. And she said that somebody approached him and started sharing one of those very uncomfortable TMI kind of stories. And she just went on, and Cal just smiled and nodded and acknowledged and kind of like encouraged to move on. And when the person finally did, Cal just looked at Laura and said, well, that was unsolicited. So that just shows you a sense of quick humor, but also a humble personality where he just made you feel right at home, even when you're sharing a really, really awful story. And I know we have kids in the room, so we won't share that. But the one thing that I will say is one of the greatest honors that I have as a member of Congress is that we get to give speeches on the House floor. One of the events that we were sharing with Nancy was at Cal's retirement party. Martha McSally was there as well. She's here with us, and I'd like to acknowledge her. She's a dear friend of Cal and the family, but also a member of Congress and the U.S. Senator that honored Cal on the Senate floor with a speech of his retirement. Well, I did something similar in the House floor upon his passing to remember him. And as you may know, when something gets read on the House floor, then that becomes congressional record. The history books of the United States Congress. So I'm going to read real quick what I was able to share about him on the House floor. I said, Mr. Speaker, I rise today with a heavy heart to honor my friend Dr. Calvin Baker, an education giant in our community who sadly passed away on December 26th of this past year. It is nearly impossible to put into words what Cal meant to our community. So Nancy, I'm sorry for your loss. Cal Baker was a truly devoted husband, father, and friend, and a transformational leader in public education. For 32 years, Cal served as superintendent of the Vail School District, dedicating his life to students, educators, and families across southern Arizona. During his tenure, Cal pioneered K-12 education in Arizona, guiding Vail's growth from fewer than 400 students to nearly 14,000 by the time he retired in 2020. His legacy lives on through the Calvin Baker Leadership Center, a lasting tribute to his service and his vision. Cal is remembered for his strength, his wisdom, his faith, and deep love for family and his community. Throughout his entire health battle, he kept a positive attitude and always had a smile to give. Though he's no longer with us, his impact will be felt for generations. In a loving message, his family described Cal as a man of grit and perseverance, words that perfectly captured his life's work and his heart as well. Laura and I were honored to know Cal and are heartbroken by his passing. We are keeping his lifelong bride, Nancy, the love of his life, their family, and all who loved him in our prayers. We lost one of the greats. Thank you, Cal. Rest in peace. These words are forever engraved in the history books of the United States Congress, just as Cal's life is engraved in our hearts forever. Thank you. Hi,
I'm Silas. I'm one of the grandsons of of Calvin. I'm the son of Summer. When I agreed to do this, I did not know there was going to be this many people. It is really cool to see all the people here who knew my grandfather, and yeah, it's just very cool to see everyone here. I like to think that I'm a lot like him. I like to think that I'm a really hard worker, and that I have that I'm smart, and I like to think that I have amazing wisdom like he did. And I mean, you all know the amazing qualities that he had, and he is one of my greatest heroes. If I could live up to half the things he did, I'd die a happy man. I don't think there's any words that I can say that will fully honor it. Not that I'm any good at words. I think one of the best ways to remember someone's legacy is just the things you do in life that remind you of them. That for me was when I got my first car. My grandfather found this car in Arizona, and he drove it all the way up to Oregon for me. And he, when we got it up there, he helped me, get it all perfectly clean, just how he likes it. And I don't know what he was thinking even doing that, because being an 18-year-old, I crashed a month later. But him putting in the hard work and showing me how to do something the right way and taking the time to do it the way it's supposed to be done, putting in the hard work and seeing the end product as it like the best it possibly can be, was one of the greatest lessons I learned. And from now on, whenever I'm out working, cleaning up a car, I will always be reminded of the amazing man that my grandfather was.
Hi, everyone. All of you. I'm Renee. I'm Cal's younger daughter. And like others have said, to be honest, I kind of struggled to think of what to say today. It's difficult to find one story that encapsulates my relationship with my father or who he really was. Plus, there's approximately 37,000 of you here. And you all knew him or me to varying degrees, which makes it even more difficult and terrifying to know what to say. But I realized no matter how well you knew my dad, one thing that we all knew was that he was an excellent educator with a very clear, defined set of values. And so I thought maybe the best way to honor him is by sharing some key lessons that he's taught me and many others with all of you. So with that being said, welcome to my dad talk. Calvinism 101. Tonight it will be an exploration of the philosophy of Calvin Baker. So let's jump right in and begin with the first and perhaps most important tenet of Calvinism, which is that a dirty car is a moral failure. Just as the body is the temple of the soul, the car is the temple of the car's soul. And so the thing is that the cars don't have hands or home gyms. And so it falls to you to be a good steward of your vehicle. And your dedication to car care is really a reflection of the dedication to good stewardship of the many duties and blessings that the Lord has given you. So to fail to keep your car clean, and I mean really clean, is a moral failing. Secondly, never pay someone else to do something you can do yourself. Yes, it may take 10 times as long, and yes, it might cause yourself and your loved ones much avoidable stress. But you know what is more important than your time and sanity? Saving money and building character. Which leads me to my next related tenet of Calvinism. Never pay someone to do something you cannot do yourself. Not actually having the skills or knowledge necessary for a project shouldn't stop you from doing it. You're a smart guy. You can figure it out. So 4, don't use 2 words when none is enough. If you knew my dad, you're likely familiar with his unspoken belief. A look is worth 1,000 words. Now, whether or not you were able to know what those 1,000 words were, when you got one of those meaningful, often unsettling, sort of Dutch Sphinx looks, is another matter. But the lesson remains to talk softly and carry a heavy gaze. 5th, everything is a lesson. My dad was a big believer that every story, memory, and moment had a hidden morality lesson within it. And it's important to choose your actions with that knowledge in mind. And so I know what you're thinking. Like, couldn't this lead to the inescapable and ever-present pressure to weigh the ethical implications of every action at all times, knowing the eyes of generations past and future are upon you, as you attempt, like Atlas, to carry the crushing burden of both legacy and this moment upon your back? To which my dad would say, and probably give you one of his signature significant looks. But if you're able to avoid an existential crisis, I think you'll find the real lesson in everything being a lesson, which is to find meaning even in the mundane. And finally, the easy thing to do is probably the wrong thing to do. And that's okay, and even good, because pain in and of itself builds character. But honestly, the most significant thing I've learned from my dad is also probably the most simple. If it's the right thing to do, then you do it. It doesn't need discussion or dithering. If it's right, then it's right, and you do it to the very best of your ability. Now, it could be challenging when your idea of what is right and my dad's idea of right ran in different directions, or, as in my case, sometimes ran directly at each other. But even if it could sometimes create conflict, I will always be grateful to my dad for instilling in me a strong commitment to live my life in service of what's right. So, in closing, talk a little less, do a little more, and the car's not clean if you didn't do the tires.
You know, thought I was doing good with my car, and I have grown tremendously in that in many ways because of Cal, but my tires are not clean. I'm not quite there. Micah Mortensen, you know, sometimes when you introduce yourself, people tell you, hey, you know, I'm the superintendent at Benson. Well, that's what I do. And who I am is I'm just a kid that grew up about 3 miles from here. And what a wonderful way to live and grow up. I learned so many wonderful things about resiliency and independence and curiosity and adventure and surrounded by love and thankfulness. And it's who I was as a kid. And Cal was a big part of my life to remind me of who I was and brought me back to that person. And we got a great story together, Cal and I, because right here, that's me. Cal came into my life when I was in 7th grade as the principal and then within a year superintendent. And to be honest, I was a Vail guy. There's Vail people out here that have been around a long time. And when Cal showed up, we didn't like him. He wasn't from Vail. He wasn't one of us. And so I was a student, and I heard my mother and my family talk about him, and it wasn't always, my mom was very involved in the school district. It was very important to her. And, he was new. So yeah, and those that heard me talk at his retirement, yes, I ate his house in 8th grade. And that was the first time I told anybody in my whole life that I did that. I don't eat eggs ever at the house, but we tried. So as I mature into, I wasn't mature yet, but as I come into adulthood, I knew that I wanted to make a difference in this world, and I knew I wanted to go back to my community and teach. And so all of a sudden, I went from student to, now I'm a teacher in Vail. And I was one of the very few people that did not get the Calvin interview. You get hired in Vail, you do the Calvin interview. And I didn't have to do that. So I immediately felt like, okay, kind of cool. He knows us, he trusts us. And that felt really good, and I learned a lot there, and had great mentors and people that Calvin mentored. Kevin Carney, one of my most important mentors in my life, hired me. And it was odd because I'd hear him call him Cal. I didn't know who that was. Mr. Baker. And I eased into Calvin, and then later in life, I became Cal. So I became a teacher, and then I became a principal. And then I called him Cal. And I want to share a quick story. There's 2 really important things I want you to walk away with today. They're nothing new, but really changed my life. And I think 2nd or 3rd year as a principal, I didn't know what I was doing. I was trying though, real hard, and I knew people is what it was about. And I remember those lessons of Cal's. And he came to a staff meeting, and he had this incredible ability to tell stories. And everyone knows that. I mean, it's unbelievable. And he told this incredible story, and it literally just happened yesterday. So I went up to him after the meeting. I said, Cal, tell me what's going on here, man. How does this happen? How do you have this amazing story that just happened yesterday? He looks at me and he goes, Micah, there's inspiration everywhere. You just got to find it and talk about it. I didn't realize how important that lesson was going to be for me. So I became a principal, and I guess I was doing okay. And one day I get a phone call, very unexpected, by the way. And he calls me and basically says, hey, Dr. Woodall, who's here today, he's over there. I won't talk about him too much, but anyway, him and Cal are 2 peas in a pod. So these old guys get together, and I get this call. He says, hey, Dr. Woodall's leaving to back home to Morenci. He wants to be with his family. And in my head, I'm thinking, why are you telling me? And he said, we think you should go to Benson. And then I became a superintendent. And our relationship changed again. And shortly after I became a superintendent, my life fell apart. And I didn't tell anybody what was going on in my life. About 6 months into being down there, I knew I had to tell Cal what was going on. I went to his office, let him know that my marriage is ending. And at that moment, we became friends. and all the lessons, finding inspiration. It was him in so many ways that helped me discover I lost my way. And countless hours in the mountains overlooking our community together, student and a mentor, just enjoying life together alone, hearing all the stories about Vail, and just changed my life. And he gave me hope, he gave me belief, and it was such a special time. So my journey's been amazing with him. And as I wrap up, I want to share, keep looking for that inspiration because it's so darn true. It's amazing. And I became a pretty good storyteller. And the other thing that has struck me and has changed my life tremendously is what's going on in here right now. He has an amazing ability to bring wonderful people together. When we became friends, my whole world opened up to all these different people. Never hiked the Grand Canyon in my life, but that's who I was. I was a desert kid, but I lost that. And I hiked the Grand Canyon in one day. And all those people in that picture, part of Cal's family, they're my friends now. Some of my dear friends, it changed my life. And tonight, I challenge you to keep that going. Because I guarantee you in this crowd right now, today, some of you, a handful of you, hopefully a lot of you, your life's going to change tonight because you're going to get a new relationship that you didn't have. And that's one of Cal's legacies. And finally, I want to say thank you to the whole entire Baker clan, family, all of them. Because I know better than most the pressure, the work, the commitment it takes to lead like that. And I know each of you gave up something to get that. And for that, I want to say thank you. And no one gave up more than that woman sitting right over there. And I've been told a lot of nice things in my life. You're good at this, you're good at that. I've even won a few things in some weird way. But one of the favorite things in my life that someone told me one day was when Nancy called me her bonus son. She gives the best hugs, so make sure you go see her. So thank you, Baker family. This is Calvin Baker right here. This is him. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. Greg Gertis, Cal's nephew. I've got a few comments so far. I guess I look a little bit like him. And there's some traits that we have, and I've heard a lot of stories about Cal so far, about him dragging people into things. This is where I drag him into something. All right, so I had the opportunity to, with Cal, and then we're going to tell you a story about a midnight run through Death Valley. And so this goes back 2010. At that time, I was running long races, and I got the opportunity to get selected to run Badwater, which is a 135-mile race through the desert, and considered, possibly the toughest foot race in the world. And I knew I was going to need a team that was going to get me through that race. And so I needed strong, slightly unstable people, willing to go to the distance with me, and make it somebody people I wanted to, spend time with. So I brought my favorite cheerleader, my wife. I had a couple buddies that I ran with in Virginia, and my brother, Gord. And then I go, I think Cal would be good for this. So I asked Cal if he would come and be on my team, because you had to have a crew when you ran this race. And he took his favorite cheerleader along as well. So we had Ann Nance on this event. So here we are. And we're about 14 hours into this race. It started in Death Valley, and you're running through the desert the whole time, 70 or 80 miles in. And the team is pretty beat up. I'm swapping through pacers about every hour. And so they're having to run with me an hour, and then they can cool off in the van. And we're talking hot. We're not talking Tucson hot. We're talking 125 degrees out during the course of this race. And we could fry the 200 degrees coming off that pavement. And it's middle of the night, and it's Cal's turn to get out of that van. Now, what I didn't know until Nance told me later was he was pre-gaming in the van with Red Bull. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Red Bull. Okay, he's got 2 cans, and he's double fisting this Red Bull before he has to head out and run with me on this next leg. So we get to the next stop, and it's time to switch pacers. And Cal pops out of that van all hopped up on Red Bull. And I get the whole Calvin experience. You know, eyes, smile. All right, let's go, right? So there we go. We go taking off. And we're just, as you guys have said, it's story time. He and I are just swapping stories back and forth and outdoing each other on our stories and just having a good time talking. And that's when that second roll of Red Bull started to kick in on it. We see off in the distance another runner, and it's like, well, we gotta pass this guy. So we start picking it up, chasing after this next runner. He's got his pacer with him. And as we start getting closer to this runner, I hear music. I'm like, do you hear music? It's like, yeah, I hear music. And as we get closer there, we realize his pacer is carrying a speaker and is playing music for his runner as he's running, and he's got this music. So we, you know, every time you pass a runner, you cordial, hey, how's it going? Keep it up. I was like, hey, you got a pretty awesome pacer there who's carrying music out here in the desert. Now, I think we've heard the stories about Cal. He's not about to be outdone in the middle of the desert. So what does Baker do? He starts breaking out into a song as loud as he can. We're passing these big, we haven't even got past him, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs some song. I can barely run straight at this point, swerving off the pavement. And before you know it, the two of us are singing whatever, I don't know what songs it was. It didn't matter, but we were having fun on this dark desert highway, cool wind in our hair, and we're running and just enjoying an incredible evening together, you know, for that 1 o'clock in the morning. It was fun, it was entertaining, it was surreal, but it was, you know, it was a great memory that Cal and I have together. And what makes it even more, makes me think of him even more is because when I did the math, he was my age at the time when he was running with me, chasing me down. And for him to do that, what meant, you know, his heart was really into it. So to Cal, for, you know, and to everybody, keep running, keep singing, and being a partner for somebody out there. Thank you.
It's a fall afternoon, 1999, October, Superintendent's Conference in Prescott. I'm sitting in a breakout session right after lunch, and you can see outside that it is a beautiful day in Prescott. Kind of sitting near the back of the room, so I slip out of the room, head to my room, get some running clothes on, because I'm going to make the best of this afternoon. I go down the back stairwell so no one will see me, get into the parking lot, and begin stretching. A moment or two later, someone else pops out of the door. I don't know the man, but I recognize him as a superintendent. I've become indignant. Look at this guy. He's being paid to come to a conference and listen to sessions, and he's blowing it off to go run in the afternoon. Some people have a lot of nerve. We introduce ourselves and determine that we're both interested in going for a run. And I begin thinking about running routes. I didn't know it at the time, but I was about to make a friend who would change my life. Because Cal was never interested in running a route. He was interested in an adventure. When you're a superintendent, you're responsible for others. You're thoughtful, conservative, calculating, concerned about outcomes. When you go on an adventure, which is defined as to engage in hazardous and exciting activity in unknown areas, you can take risks, throw caution to the wind, and push the envelope. And that's what Cal liked to do. Cal loved an adventure, and even more loved sharing it with others. If he could persuade, trick, or shame you into doing it, he would. It's August of 2003. Frank Davidson, who's over there, Cal invited us to come into Vail, spend the night, and we would get up and do 12 to 15 mile run in the foothills of Vail. At least that's what we had been assured. Before the morning came, Cal had planned an adventure. We would go up a single track trail, 14.5 miles, Mica Mountain, Manning Camp. When I inquired, how are we going to get back from there? He looked at me like I'm stupid and said, well, we'll run. Okay. 6 hours, 29 miles, 103 degrees, cramping, out of water. We made it to lay on Calvin's living room floor, writhing with pain. I remember Vince coming in, looking around like, what's wrong with those guys? Don't ask about intravenous fluids, emergency rooms, or my wife having to drive to Tucson. I think one of Cal's favorite adventures, which I know John Caruth referenced, Steve McAllister can talk about, was running rim to rim at the Grand Canyon. He liked to encourage is a strong word, encourage others to join him on this annual event, because he liked to see people reach their absolute physical limitations. I remember one year, like people before me, saying, Cal, I can't run the Grand Canyon. I need to train for that. And he actually said, you don't train for the Grand Canyon. You train by running the Grand Canyon. Later, as I'm trying to come up the south rim with both calves cramping, I thought, yeah, that didn't make any sense. In 2006, with much encouragement from Cal, I left Morenci to become the superintendent of Benson Schools. We now live an hour apart, and Saturdays were often spent on outings that began before the sun came up and ended at breakfast at one of the local restaurants. Over breakfast, we would have great conversation, talking about our kids, our grandkids, God, future, hopes, dreams, and the next adventure. It was over one of these breakfasts where I saw Cal speechless for the first time. We had developed a relationship with this older waitress that worked at one of the restaurants. And Cal had this thing about coffee. He liked to get his coffee cup filled with breakfast and then not get it filled till breakfast was over. Then he wanted another cup. And a waitress had come by 3 or 4 times and said, hey, can I fill your cup up? Can I top that off for you? No, I'm good. Breakfast is over, his cup's empty. And she keeps walking by, not filling it. Finally goes, hey, can I get some coffee now? She turns around, puts her hand on her hip, and looks at him, and loudly says, I'm not here at your beck and call. Everybody in the restaurant turned and looked. He didn't want to say. Over the next 8 years, Cal, Frank, and I crisscrossed the country running marathons in a dozen states. This included his home state of Minnesota, where we managed to finish a marathon with hypothermia and frostbite. More important, adventures continued during my time in Benson. After running off the top of Mount Graham and only missing our car by 20 miles, I had a first in how to hitchhike as an adult. I was escorted by gunpoint off a ranch south of Imparita after climbing over a high locked gate with multiple no trespassing signs. The gal said, did not apply to runners or hikers. I learned for the first time there were portions of the Arizona Trail that only Cal could see. Climbing through brush and being scratched and going over rocks for 2 hours one Saturday, I said, Cal, we gotta find a trail. He said, this is the Arizona Trail. Okay, I can see it now. I found that hitting my head on a mesquite branch early in a run and bleeding profusely was not a reason to interrupt an adventure. Ignore the blood on your hat, face, shirt. Later, when we got to pavement, Cal would assure people that stopped to offer assistance that he was okay. After running over the pass of Cochise's stronghold and not finding a trail back to our vehicle, I rode the back of a veterinarian's truck until we reached pavement where my wife could come get us. It wasn't the first time she said that maybe we should plan a little better. But where's the adventure in that? I am going to miss Cal very dearly. Saturday conversations, his sense of humor, his ability to laugh at himself, his kindness, his ability to make you want to be the best version of yourself. But he won't be easily forgotten because you don't forget an adventure.
Oh man, I have so many memories to pick from. Having moved to Tucson to live with bakers since I was one of those 62. My senior year in high school, 30 years ago, I could talk about how my loving uncle busted his knuckles trying to keep my piece of junk hand-me-down car running. How he helped me find my first car, a $500 Toyota Tercel that even had air conditioning. I could fast forward and I could start bragging about how spoiled I am to be his next door neighbor these last 17 years. He has been a grandpa to my kids, spending time with them, loving on them by visiting their classrooms, speaking at 8th grade homeschool co-op graduations, attending plays and meets, and going on lots of Jeep rides. I could talk about the valuable quality time that I got with him as we spent hours running every weekend, running and hiking, training me for my very first Grand Canyon Rim to Rim in 2017. That, by the way, we did together, just the two of us. And it was a bonding time that we shared these last 6 years as we carpooled twice a week at 6 a.m. to our kettlebell class, at least when he wasn't in isolation from a transplant. I know you've heard a lot of very similar memories, cars, hikes, quality time. But I'm going to tell you about an early core memory that I have from soon after I moved here. its core because it was very emotionally charged for me. I had an English assignment that was kicking my butt, and I procrastinated, and it was due soon, probably the next day. Ironically, we had to analyze the Dylan Thomas poem, "Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night." I say ironically because it's a poem about death and how you live your life. My task was to write about how I was raging against the dying of the light from its refrain. Uncle Cal took me to his office that evening so that I could work on his computer in quiet while he was at his board meeting or something. And then later, he sat down with me. He didn't rush me or check his watch. He didn't give me a hard time about having procrastinated and showing that grace. And he helped me by gently asking me questions and helped me think through how my solo move away from home had been sorry, it's just a story, there's nobody here, had been a step away from dysfunction and a step towards the light, sorry. And how it was towards agency and independence. And he helped me give myself credit for making good decisions. And by doing so, he encouraged me to continue walking in the light. You know that's biblical. Well, the assignment, it got finished. And his late night sacrifice did not go unnoticed. It made me feel seen and safe and loved. He had a way of doing that to me. He would get so excited seeing potential in people. And whether you knew him professionally or personally, family, he would get so excited when he could line somebody up with the right job for their skills and their talents. And when they would get fired up, it just jazzed him. He loved to see people succeed because they were walking in the light, in line with who God had created them to be. And so I just encourage you, walk in the light, okay? Thank you.
This year we spent Thanksgiving with Cal and Nancy. As I entered their house, I saw the addition of 2 shelves lining the hallway displaying photo books that Cal had written. After dinner, my husband and I pulled a few different books from the shelves and sat in the kitchen booth with Cal. We read the books and asked questions. His eyes lit up as he talked about each one of the stories they contained, and I was struck by how much stories meant to him. He was willing to do the work, so we have the stories of the past. He knew the power of a story. He also knew the power of those pictures had made the words come alive. So he spent hours digging through old family slides and photos in order to find just the right ones. And then the additional hours editing the photos long before AI could assist with the process. His books remind us of who we are and where we came from. His books challenged the intended audience, often his grandchildren, to think about how they would have liked living during that time or how they would have responded to the hardships. He encouraged them to find the ways they were like their great-grandparents. A few years ago, he took on the task of doing a Storyworth book focused on his own life experiences. He dedicated countless hours to remembering, reflecting, and writing the stories down, and then sending them off to family members to ensure that he had all the facts right. His commitment resulted in a whole book of stories captured for his family who may never have thought to ask the questions that would have prompted all the captured memories. I remember my new teacher orientation in Vail. It included a bus ride with Cal on a microphone. He started by saying that just like you join a family, you need to learn the stories, you need to understand the history, you need to see the places so you can feel part of the new family. He wanted to share the stories of the district, so all new faculty would feel part of the fabric of the district. Cal valued the stories of the past, and he valued each one of the stories that everyone in this room brought to his life. I'm so grateful to have heard so many of his stories, and even more grateful for how many of my life stories include him.
Calvin Baker influenced my life in many ways. One of them as the most influential mentor in my role with the Vail School District. But one of the biggest blessings of my family's life was becoming Calvin and Nancy Baker's neighbor. Over the years, Cal and Nancy became our dear friends. Today, I hope to honor him as my mentor, my friend, my neighbor, and a master adventurer. A week before Calvin passed, my family and I visited with his wife, Nancy, in the cafeteria of the Mayo Clinic, where Cal received incredible care during his cancer journey. She shared that each of their children had filmed a video for him and began to tell us about their son Everett's video. It was everything Calvin Baker gets done from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. It began with a session of used car shopping, which Cal was an expert at, and many of us benefited from. But the next hour was a nod to the neighbors and an epic battle with cutting down a mesquite tree in 100-degree heat. The neighbors were us, specifically my husband, John. Calvin rolled in that morning with a forestry-grade chainsaw that he had borrowed from a neighbor, which was so gigantic that one of them couldn't start it alone. It took the two of them. It was a battle with this mesquite tree. It had some huge limbs, and they couldn't get the chainsaw through one of them. They actually got the chainsaw stuck in the center of the branch. So they ratcheted the branch to lessen the weight and were absorbed in hours of effort to get the chainsaw out. They finally got it free, but they forgot that the ratchet was attached to the branch. And when the branch came loose, it swung pendulum style down with some force and put a significant hole in the side of our house. Calvin could find or possibly make adventure everywhere he turned. And both my husband and I benefited greatly from the Calvin Baker adventures. He lived big, but he loved bigger. And that brings us to the reason that Cal showed up on that particular day, and why he didn't choose a lovely 80-degree day in November to cut down that tree with John, but why he chose a 100-plus-degree day in early September. What Everett didn't know when he made his video is that my stepson went to prison just a week or two before Calvin showed up at our door with his forestry-grade chainsaw. He showed up because he knew that my husband needed him. He showed up because he needed John to know that he was in his hardest of hard days, days when our family didn't know how we would possibly get to the other side. Cal showed up. And I know that looking around this room, Calvin Baker showed up for so many of us, maybe in a one-time 2-minute conversation, maybe to cheer us on or encourage us with the exact right words at just the right time. Or maybe even when our lives hit rock bottom. It was his superpower. When reflecting on this superpower with Nancy, this is what she shared. As Calvin grew in his leadership over the years, he became more intentional about connection, and he became more comfortable with vulnerability. And what he found is that his impact grew exponentially as a result. I believe that each of us in this room today is Cal's legacy, in how we choose to live our lives each day. He wasn't afraid to sit in silence and just be with others. He wasn't afraid to step alongside us in our seemingly impossible moments, because Cal believed that anything was possible through deep faith and a whole lot of grit. Calvin Baker, you inspired many of us in your time on this earth to grow in our leadership, to love one another, and adventure as often as possible. May we honor your life by how we live ours, and finding adventure everywhere we turn, and in showing up for each other, while being intentional enough to pay attention to who needs us at just the right moment. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Adeline. I'm one of the granddaughters. I was also really struggling with coming up with what to say tonight. I would write things and then delete them. And then we went to the funeral and my dad pretty much stole what I was gonna say. And I can't see that he copied me because I wrote this about like 3 or 4 hours ago. So a lot of the grandkids were introduced to driving with Grandpa's Jeep that we called the Tough Jeep. The name Tough came from the lack of bells and whistles that it had. It didn't look really tough. It looked pretty rough, but it was great. And I remember when he would have us drive it for him, and we would come up to these great hills, and a lot of the grandchildren reflected on this great fear that we would not be able to make it up the hill, and that we would go up and then flip over and flip the Jeep, because that's something we heard that some other family members have done. So I remember distinctly coming up to this hill and, you know, just having a lot of fear, and Grandpa encouraging me, saying, no, the Jeep can make it, we can make it. And so I started to go up slowly and hesitantly, but he encouraged me, and he was fearless. So I started to go up the hill, and the Jeep kind of slowed down, so I slammed on the gas, and we were able to make it up the hill. And then just recently, as Grandpa got his side-by-side ATV, he again had me drive, and I had my license for a few years, and so I had a little bit more confidence to take on these hills, but he warned me that the ATV can get stuck. I again heard about family members who had gotten it stuck. He again encouraged me to go fast and to take it wherever I wanted. I think he regretted that when I would take the corners really fast or not stop at these intersections that he said another person might come through, even though we did not run into anybody out there. But yeah, he just told me to go anywhere. He didn't give direction when I would ask which way. He said it doesn't matter. And so he just let me lead, and he said go, and so I did. And then, as some of you know, I attended Grand Canyon University for my freshman year of college. And so I was able to just spend a lot of time with Papa and Grandpa, come back to their house for quite a few weekends. And as I neared the end of my spring semester, I was questioning if I wanted to come back the following year. And I was talking to Grandpa about it, not explicitly saying that I wanted to not come back, but kind of just expressing my struggles. And he said, well, you shouldn't drop out of college. Your education is really important. And, you know, I just kind of said, like, I know, which Beppa says that when I say I know, that just means that I don't really want to say what I'm really thinking. But what I was really thinking was, well, Grandpa, that wasn't really my plan, but okay. So yeah, he just, even though I was uncertain, he just continued to validate and encourage me. And so really my main point of telling you all these stories is that Grandpa believed in us, and he was constantly pushing us to do the things that we didn't think that we could do ourselves, like make it up these hills or make it, through life. There was just a lot of points where he was able to encourage us and just really push us. Like we said, he really enjoyed hard work and liked seeing hard work from his family. And as a grandchild, it wasn't really hard, like physical manual labor, but just doing the hard work of, living with those good values and honoring God, which isn't easy always. So I just always appreciated how much he encouraged us and how he just had faith in how we were. So.
I instantly regret my decisions to volunteer to do this. I am regretting this. I wonder, just by show of hands, how many knew of Cal Baker professionally speaking, just worked with him, or I had the pleasure of being his nephew and working just 2 years in one of his schools here. So wanted to share just kind of a balanced approach of who my uncle was and my boss. I have that unique perspective because although I am his nephew, I was a former employee at one of his elementary schools here in town, Sonata Valley Elementary. Former, meaning that I moved home to Washington. I didn't get fired. At any rate, I have seen his structured schedule, like you guys have heard. I've seen his professionalism. I attended the teacher trainings, the school functions. He was tenacious in the Vail School District. He had many disciplined and well-trained teachers, and of course, one rascally nephew teacher. That was me. But I also experienced an underlying generosity that was deeply profound. For instance, Uncle Cal knew that as a sole provider on a base teacher pay, we were skimping by. And he visited me every so often. I was teaching 4th grade here at Sonata Valley. And one occasion he came into the room and he told my 4th grade students about a time that he was in Alaska and it was whistling and the northern lights were dancing. And my kids loved that. And they loved seeing someone famous in their room, Cal Baker. And then he left an envelope on my desk and opened it and found several $100s. It's really important to me that he noticed me doing that. And not only did it come at a time he really needed it, but just improved my vision of who he was as my boss and my uncle. Another time, he came to a Christmas party at my home in South Tucson, and he generously let his wife, my Aunt Nancy, buy the tree, the presents, and the decorations for that party. He took us out to lunch, Melissa and I, and our little daughter, Addie. He took us out to lunch many times after church. He let me borrow his wife's, thank you, Uncle Cal, for letting us borrow your wife's yellow Acura for about 3 months. And I'm sure that the engine was already having trouble before we got it. I'm sure that us driving it up Mount Lemmon and it blowing a head gasket was not our fault. Thank you, Uncle Cal, for rescuing us off the mountain and fixing that little car. In terms of his tenacity on and off the job, I also ran with him, but once was enough. All the rest of you guys, I don't know what's wrong with you. I did it once. And I was like, yep, that was good enough. I have worshipped. I worshipped next to him. I worked with him, but I also worshipped next to him. Stood next to him, listening to him sing. And he loved children. I see a lot of these pictures holding kids. He held Addie, my daughter, my firstborn. And I look over and he's singing in her ear, praises to God. That was me and my daughter. And at rodeo weekend, when Addie is like 2 years old, He's leading her around. He found us at Rodeo Weekend, which the school district puts on. And he's leading my little 2-year-old around, showing her all the exhibits. And he's holding her hand. It's my uncle. It's very important. On that one run, the only one I did, we're finishing uphill. He and Aunt Nance live at the top of the hill, just a couple streets down. And it's a bear of a hill. And you guys know that finishing uphill, I'm sure Greg, you know, finishing uphill is just miserable. It's horrible. And we're running up that last hill, and in between breaths, he's encouraging. That pitter pat of feet, you can do it, Cole. You can do it, Cole. We can do it. You will do it. You will finish. Just how many saints in the room need to hear that right now in your life? Cal Baker saying to you, you can do it. You can do it. You will finish. You will finish.
Better share your loss. Calvin, it was a great honor to do life with you and your family as our next door neighbors. I remember when my wife broke the news we had new neighbors. She told our boys, I have some good news and some bad news. The good news was that they had kids their age. And the bad news, he is your new principal. Living next to the principal somewhat curtailed our activities at school, but not completely. Raising our kids together was a blessing. Only one kid from each family got arrested together, I might add. Your father on council. My son didn't go into medicine so he could go places as a doctor or missionary might not get to go. In the end, their records were expunged, and they went on to become productive adults. Watching you work with your boys under veils taught them valuable life skills, and more importantly, you spent quality time with them. Oh, that more fathers would follow your example. And by the way, it would have been better not to have Hassel return borrowed tools, as sometimes I think he just picked up a tool that was handy and put it in my toolbox and viewed it as close enough. Your toolbox probably looks very much like mine. I greatly respected your dinner time devotions you had with your family. You planted seeds that will yield fruit for years to come, even though you did not live long enough to see the full harvest. But in the end, all will be revealed fully. Cal, the one thing I missed since moving away from Arizona was our occasional spa chats. Our jobs placed us in positions responsible for the management of people and projects. While it can sometimes seem a little overwhelming, just chatting about issues and circumstances with someone not involved helps. Maybe we should have called them managerial therapy sessions. When you would walk by the sliding glass doors on my patio and point to the spa, that was my cue to get my trunks on and get in the spa as we needed to chat. Since you were not really given much to drinking spirits, I knew we had a small crisis on our hands when you walked past the glass doors one night with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses in hand. That was the equivalent of a managerial 911 call. The only thing I remember was names were never mentioned in our discussion, only issues and how best to handle them. You always had the best interest of your staff and teachers as your primary goal. They were family to you. Cal, I was going to say the world lost a great man with your passing, but the world is so much better with you passing by and sharing a moment of your love for your wife, family, friends, your character, your creativity, kindness, honesty, and leadership. Most of all, modeling the character of God. Cal, at my age, I cannot be far behind you. So make sure there's a spot between your place and mine, and God will love both neighbors forever. Love you, Terry.
My name is Everett Baker, and I'm the oldest grandson. And I tell you whose son I was, but my stories were also stolen. And the worst part is that I told him the stories beforehand, and he asked if I was going to share them. My grandpa was my #1 supporter, especially in every physical feat. Sadly, that also came with the role of #1 torture, because he would sign me up for so many things that offered pain and suffering, but also brought me to the edge of everything I could complete. Every time we were together, we had to find a physical challenge that we were able to compete in together. In Pennsylvania, that usually included him running a casual marathon on a trail near our house while I would bike along with him. Until recently, I didn't quite understand how incredible that was, but each day I'm more impressed by it. As time went on, we did even more insane activities. Each time, Grandpa believed that we could do it. When I visited in high school, I had a week break with him, and Grandpa threw me on a road bike, and we went twice around the neighborhood. He decided the next day it was time to go to Mount Lemmon, and so we biked for 27 miles, uphill the entire time. Not only that, but the road bike he gave me was malfunctioning and the seat would not stay up. Each person we passed asked us if we had the Allen wrench that most people keep on the back of their bike. He had conveniently forgotten that and said that he didn't need tools. So, at the end of the brutal climb, with the end, I did bring him back to reality that going down the mountain my second time on a road bike clipped in was not for me. But I found out that his cousin Leon outdid me, and his first time on the road bike went down the hill and survived. As Grandpa's physical ability declined, his belief in others did not. In me, I think I had to make up for his ability not to do it, because he would find tasks that I could do and then add a little more to it just so that he could feel alive through it. Most recently, I came down for a visit on a Labor Day weekend, my senior year of college. On my drive down Friday evening, my grandpa called me to tell me he had signed me up for an 8.5-mile race in Saguaro National Park. And to those of you who do not know me, I do not run. I talked to him about it because he loves it, but I will not do it. And then spent the weekend telling me how technical I had to do and how difficult of a race it was going to be with a 3-mile hill. As I went through this run, he met me at the finish line. He made sure that he was cheering me on along. These stories just give a glimpse into how much my grandpa believed in me, but also into so many others. It often put me into situations where I felt uncomfortable and unsure of whether or not I would succeed. But his belief in all of us, each of us has a story where he believed in us, and it was a real belief, one that made you feel that you needed to give it your everything because he believed that your everything was going to make you succeed. Oftentimes, he would believe in you more than you believed in yourselves, and for me, it led to many of my greatest accomplishments.
Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know us, I'm Imogen. I'm Sue. We're Calvin's granddaughters.
We would like to share some short yet very meaningful memories we have right
I want to share a memory from the last time I visited my grandpa and grandpa here in Tucson, because it's one I'll carry with me forever. It was our last day there, and we were leaving for the airport in an hour or two. One thing my grandpa and I always loved to do together was go on adventures on his four-wheeler. I asked him if we could go for one last ride before we left, and he could have easily said no because he was sick, tired, and I was leaving soon anyway. But knowing my grandpa, he said yes, which is a pretty usual response for all his grandchildren. We grabbed the keys, hopped on the four-wheeler, and drove out of the neighborhood and into a few others nearby. Eventually, we came across a school that was under construction, one of the schools he had been principal of. There were no workers there, so we stopped. Without going inside, he pointed out all the buildings to me. We walked over to where the gym was being built, and he told me all about it. He talked to me about what it was like being a superintendent, principal, and how much he loved helping kids get an education. I asked him questions, and he answered every single one patiently, like he always did. You could tell how proud he was of the work he had done and how much he truly cared about students and learning. After that, we kept riding and came across an empty lot where a house was supposed to be built. It was all dried up mud and really bumpy, and we thought it would be fun to drive on it. That muddy lot led us straight into the desert. There, we sped through miles of dirt, went up and down hills that I thought we would not get to the other side of. We laughed, and he even let me drive for a little bit through the wash. That's how I'll always remember my grandpa. Kind, adventurous, and always caring deeply about helping others, especially children. Thank you.
I always knew my grandpa wanted to spend time with me, even if that meant him letting me paint his fingernails with marker. But we would do many other things together as well. One of me and grandpa's things was doing puzzles. Every time we visited, we would do puzzles until our eyes started to burn or our backs began to ache. We would compete to see who could get the next piece and make up words like Shazam to say every time we found a piece into place. We would also always put the last piece in place together. I remember one time me and Grandpa were just about finished with our puzzle. We were down to our last pieces when we decided to take a break and go to Starbucks. When we got back, my little brother Lars had knocked the puzzle off the table, leaving it in pieces. I felt so discouraged. We had worked so hard, but my grandpa stayed optimistic and encouraged me to do it again. We finished it in 3 days. Without Grandpa, I would have put that puzzle back in the box, leaving it in pieces. Grandpa always persevered even when things got hard. He was a great grandpa and an even better man. Another thing me and Grandpa did together was watch songs on his computer. We would sing them, do hand motions, and no song would end without us laughing. He was always up for one little finger, and there's a hole in the bottom of his sleeve, and mine was sunshine. But his favorite song we would sing together is Skinamarink. Every time we would sing it, he would sing louder and stronger than he would for the others. And every time he said, "I love you," he'd point at me and I'd point right back. Just singing the song with Grandpa made me so happy. And I just wish me and Grandpa could sing it one more time together.
We're also Calvin's granddaughters. I'm Evie. And we wanted to share a few things before we sing.
So today we're going to sing the song Be Thou With Them, and we chose the song because it holds a very special place in our hearts. Grandpa's dad worked on a farm, and even though he was so devoted to his farming, even more so he was devoted to fulfilling the plan that God had for him. God gave him the gift of singing, and even if he had demanding tasks at hand on the farm, he was willing to step away and join people with music at their weddings, singing the song Be Thou With Them. While his voice was strong and beautiful to listen to, what was really highlighted in these moments was his love and care for those around him. This specific song was near and dear to him as he sang it at each and every one of his children's weddings, Grandpa included.
So something that really stands out to us about Grandpa was the way that he was able to carry on his family's legacy. So like Freya said, he observed and he learned from his father. And in this, he continued on to gift people with this same song that he would sing and just level of care in general. So throughout my life and my time with Grandpa, I always felt an overwhelming blanket of love and care. I never doubted whether or not I was important to him. And while his voice may not have been his gift in the same exact way that his dad's was, his ability to make me and so many others feel around him feel so special and loved was what really shined through. Throughout many instances, he displayed his affection through song also, regardless of his talent. Something that me and him loved to do together alongside many other people with him, but it was to go for long bike rides. And he always pushed me to pedal more and more miles alongside of him. He was so confident in my capability even when I wasn't. There was one time when I had fallen off my bike and I hurt my arm, and I was so confident that I had broken it. And I felt discouraged to get back on the seat, but he made me feel safe and able as he sang the Ants Go Marching one by one, over and over again, until I'd completely forgotten about the fall in the first place. I was only overcome with laughter and gratitude that I had a grandfather who knew how to make me feel loved and proud of myself. He knew how to transform my doubt and my scarcity into confidence and strength. Even though his voice wasn't like his dad's, he still used song to exert his love onto everyone around him.
As Grandpa learned from his dad, I have learned from him. A few years ago, Grandpa asked me to play piano while he and Ethan made out with them for my Aunt Renee's wedding. Not only was this an act of love towards his child Renee, but it was a way to teach his grandkids how to carry on the legacy of making people feel loved through song. Because this tradition was so special to my grandpa, it became very special to me as well. And while I stood up in front of all my family ready to perform, I began to feel myself become nervous. But with Grandpa and Edie by my side, I began to feel stronger and less alone. And as the song unfolded, all my nerves faded away, and I instead felt the comfort and pride of being able to enjoy this moment with my grandpa. We wanted to play this song to you, not only in remembrance of him, but in hopes that it will have the same impact. Now, Imogen and Soda will join us on the stage.
Kind of wish I could be as tall as they right now. It'd make public speaking a lot easier. My name is Jordan Burry, and I'm married to Calvin and Nancy's oldest daughter, Summer. We started dating when we were 15 years old, so I've known the Bakers for 30 years. You can't tell. Cal and Nancy held their family time near and dear to their hearts, especially family dinner times, as many of you have got to experience. So consequently, Cal didn't allow Summer to be out much, so I was over at their house constantly so I could see my beautiful girlfriend. Despite Summer's brother's elaborate and mostly physically abusive schemes, they're very eloquent public speakers and they look like teddy bears, but they will squeeze it out of you.
Despite them trying to scare me off, I still kept coming around. Cal and Nancy treated me like one of the family, even though I was just a young punk kid dating their daughter. Cal still showed me respect and kindness, even when I was a kid. Fast forward, Summer and I get married, which gave me the distinct, I swallowed a bug, sorry. Gave me the distinct honor and privilege to call Cal Dad. Our relationship just kept growing stronger and stronger, and he loved me like a son, and I loved him like a dad. Summer and I lost our firstborn baby, Miles David. He was born premature, his lungs weren't developed enough to be able to breathe on his own. So Summer and I were just kids ourselves at the time, maybe 23. We were obviously devastated and had no clue what to do. Cal said to me, "You don't have to worry about a single thing. I will make the funeral arrangements, phone calls, and all the necessary coordinations. You just be with your wife." Right before he was born, I inconveniently had 20 tons of rock delivered to our house so that I could make a trailer pad out on the side. After Miles died, Cal and I went outside and we shoveled rock by hand in a wheelbarrow, all 20 tons of it. We shoveled and we spread rock for several days. We didn't talk much. We just shoveled our grief away together for hours on end. He brought me into his favorite activities. We ran together, again, not much. I was pretty proud at 5 miles, so he made me do 8 miles, and I almost had an embolism rupture in my head. People were going crazy. We hiked, we biked, we four-wheeled. He would tell me stories constantly about living in Alaska. We would have long discussions about politics and anything else that had piqued his interest, or most of the time, any documentaries he had just watched. Aside from fully adopting me into his family and loving me so well, he was a living example to me. He was an example of a man who followed Jesus. I'm not going to list all of his characteristics, as so many have before me and so many people will in their speeches, but they can be summed up by calling him a man after God's own heart, who led his life by example. Steadfast, solid, strong, yet compassionate. I miss him terribly, and we will forever be grateful for him being in his life. God bless you all, and keep you in his peace.
Cal hired me when I was a young man, early in my career, still figuring out who I was, what I would become. What I didn't understand then was that he wasn't just offering me a job, he was offering me belief in myself. Cal saw something in me before I fully saw it myself. He trusted me. He stretched me. He gave me room to grow with a steadiness and a grace that made you want to rise, not shrink. That kind of belief changes the direction of the life. Mine changed because of him. Our relationship over time deepened. We became friends. And our families became woven together in ways that time and distance could never unravel. Our daughters didn't just become friends, they grew together. Vacations, long trips, college tours across the Western US, shared conversations about hopes, worries, and dreams. We logged a lot of miles together, literal miles and life miles. Those years mattered. They still do. One moment captures Cal for me more than almost any other. When we ran the Grand Canyon together. This was a significant feat for me. I didn't take it lightly, and Cal understood exactly what it meant to invite someone into something hard. Not to prove anything, but to experience it fully. He didn't rush, he didn't complain, and he didn't leave me behind. Well, wait a minute, he did leave me behind twice. That was Cal in life. He persevered, he endured, and he did it with quiet strength and grace. Cal was a giant in the Vail community, not because he needed attention, because people stood taller around him. He built people up. He built a community. He built possibility. And he did it with vision, passion, and deep care for others. To Cal's family, please know this: your husband, your father, your grandfather shaped far more lives than you may ever fully see. And I am one of them. My family is part of that story, and our daughters carry his influence forward. Cal taught us how to keep going with purpose, with grace, and with others beside us. And as long as we do that, we are still walking and running with him.
Well, I'm glad that we're having so many different people share about my dad, because clearly there are a wide variety of experiences with him. And I was listening to my brothers talk about this strange, like, hard stare. I never had a hard stare like that. And I was hearing them talk about, like, go out and mow the desert. I never had to go out and mow the desert. And once I told my story about my dad lovingly sending his reimbursement checks to me and saw the responses, I thought, okay, I'm not going to tell any more. I just continued to listen and be like, oh yeah, that's what happened to me too. But when I was a baby and we were living in Alaska, although life was very different in Alaska, the culture of our family was the same. And my parents had a lot of people over to the house. We had friends over, teachers from the school. And in that tiny village, a lot of those people were in multiple categories. They were friends and teachers and from the church, and they would come for all the events. So our house was busy and we had a lot of people. And when I was an infant, that made the commotion in the house made it difficult for me to settle down in the evenings to be able to sleep. And so my dad would put me up on his shoulder and one hand underneath to support me and one hand steadily and rhythmically patting against my back. And he would sing to me, walk up and down the hallway and sing to me. And I'm sure he sang many songs, but the one that we remember the most is You Are My Sunshine. And I was considering this story, which, you know, my brothers have held over my head and used as evidence that I've been the favorite child. But although I don't have my own recollection of that experience, certainly it shaped me and it formed me. But as I was thinking about it, I thought about the irony of me being an inconsolable crying baby and him speaking over me, you are my sunshine. And that sunshine just seemed like the wrong adjective for the moment. But he didn't define me by my struggle. He prophesied over me with truth. He sang these lyrics to me as he wore the path in the hallway, reminding me of who I was created to be and who he knew me to be, even if in that moment I wasn't reflecting it. And Zephaniah 3:17 says, the Lord your God is in your midst. The mighty one will save. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will quiet you with his love. He will rejoice over you with singing. And that is what my dad did to me. he rejoiced over me with singing. And he quieted me with his love. And maybe, you didn't have the chance to walk the hallways of our house with my dad, but many of you have walked the trails and you have ridden your bike and you've walked the future site of a new school building or the sidewalk of a church. And maybe he didn't sing over you, but he spoke prophetic truth over you. Even if you couldn't quite believe it yet yourself, or you weren't currently reflecting that truth in your life. Maybe he told you in a story or shared in historical facts, but you knew that there was more to it than that. And in Luke 24, when the famous story about the disciples walking on the road to Emmaus, and they get to walk with Jesus, and they don't realize that it's him. And then later, after Jesus leaves, the disciples say to themselves, didn't our hearts burn within us when he spoke these things and when he told us these stories? And I know that he has told stories to you and spoken things over you that have caused your heart to burn within you. And on our last day with my dad in the hospital, we were all surrounding his bed. And at different points throughout the day, he would wake from sleep and look around the room. And he would make eye contact with us. And it was as though we were in this space between the now and the eternity. And he was seeing us as God sees us. His eyes were so intent and focused, and it felt like his earthly eyes were being allowed to see us through the revelation of eternity. And he was saying, I knew it. I knew it. I knew you were that beautiful. I knew you were that strong. I knew that you were that wise and creative and capable. And like God allowed for him to look at us and see us the way that God sees us. And long after I had outgrown being put on his shoulder, my dad saying, you are my sunshine, to each one of his grandkids. He walked the hallways of each one of our houses with a baby on his shoulder, singing heavenly truth over them. And today, my oldest daughter is going to share a dance that she choreographed to that song, You Are My Sunshine, in honor of her grandpa. And I pray that as you listen, again, your heart will burn with the true identity that he has spoken over you, and that you would be able to see yourself as the precious child of God, hearing this song as he holds you close in comfort.
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when the skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. So please don't take my sunshine away. The other night, dear, as I lay sleeping, I dreamt I held you in my arms. When I awoke, dear, I was mistaken. So I hung my head and cried. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. So please don't take my sunshine away.
Good evening. I'm Holly, and this is really hard because my sister is not showing me any love right now. It's very hard to top off. I am one of the many granddaughters of Calvin Baker. My grandpa was an amazing person. Some people feel like they have to live up to some certain expectation before they pass. Grandpa exceeded all of those. I remember a time this summer when we sat around Grandpa's living room. We were praying for him. At first, I thought it would be easy to speak up and pray for my grandpa I love so much, but it wasn't. Every time I thought I had the right words to pray, I would try to say them and nothing would come out. The reason for this is not that I couldn't hear God's voice, it is because I felt like no words I had were good enough. When I finally started praying, the words started rushing out of me, and I immediately could tell they were the right words. I'm sharing this particular story with you because it means a lot to me now. I realized the words I prayed that day didn't actually mean for him to get better, but for God to make the right decision. I wanted God to choose whether or not he wanted Grandpa to keep fighting. As soon as I figured this out, of course, I thought the right answer was to keep fighting. But God has been waiting Grandpa's whole life to have him come up to heaven. In Grandpa's life, he did many important things as a brother, a son, a dad, an uncle, a grandpa, a teacher, a principal, a superintendent, an athlete. All of these things are so important, and most people can't even achieve half of them in one lifetime. My grandpa did multiple good things for me in his life. One of my favorite memories of him is when I would snuggle him on the couch. Now, we didn't just sit there. He would play songs on his computer. He played Anska Marching, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, This Little Finger, the Do You Like song. Sorry. Skidamarinky-Dinky-Dink, and my personal favorite, Down by the Banks Where the Water Runs. Now, these weren't random songs. These were picked by Grandpa as his favorites. Another memory, well, they happened a lot, is his firm cup popping hugs. His hugs always made me feel safe and loved. Grandpa had a way of making them impossible to breathe. Doing this made his hugs very memorable. Grandpa was always the person to tell us to keep going. One time, we were climbing a place called Pistol Hill, and we asked to turn around so many times. But Grandpa said the same thing every time. Almost there. We really were. But we kept on going. At this time, Grandpa was really sick, but he still did better than all of us. When we reached the top, the reward was so worth it. We just stood up there for so long, ogling at the view. When we got back down, Grandpa took us to Dairy Queen for a blizzard. Then he taught us a lesson we'll never forget. Keep going and you'll be rewarded. Anyone could say this, but when my grandpa said it, you could tell he really believed it. Grandpa was one of the most faithful believers I've ever known. He was sick for so long before he passed, and he just kept on loving God. Not many people knew Grandpa as well as I did. I knew and loved him so much. I even wanted my friends to know him. One of the times he visited us, we went to the gym and my friend was there too. I vividly remember my friend whispering in my ear, "Your grandpa can do 20 pull-ups?" And I remember saying to her, "Yeah, he has superpowers." I wasn't that young at the time, but I fully believed that my grandpa had powers. Grandpa was the kind of grandparent who spoils his grandkids. He basically got us everything we wanted. I remember he was visiting us a different time, and he had just picked me up from basketball practice.
There was dinner at home, but still, Grandpa offered to give me Burger King. It was the small things like this that fed my appreciation for Grandpa. Another thing he did was fix our things. Our house looks so much better due to Grandpa. He fixed our kitchen, our bathroom, our porch, and our lives. Grandpa had such a big impact on everyone, not just his relatives, but everyone he knew. My grandpa had cancer for as long as I can remember, yet he still told everyone they were strong. Nobody I know is as strong as my grandpa. Because he wasn't just physically strong, he was mentally strong. His mental health was off the charts. The last thing I want to recognize Grandpa for are his prayers. He was so connected to God that as soon as he prayed something, it would start to come true. So to honor him for that, I would like to pray over my loving and kind Grandpa. Dear God, I want to thank you for making my grandpa's life as long and full as you could. You, I, and everyone else attending this service knows that Grandpa lived an amazing life. Thank you for letting Grandpa experience the world through many eyes, from every angle. Please tell Grandpa that his family and friends love him very much, and we can't wait to see him in heaven. Tell him he succeeded in life, and tell him he means so much to everybody in general. Tell Grandpa he's amazing. Amen. Thank you.
Okay, you guys are doing great, and we're just gonna do a quick 100 push-up break. No, we're almost done. I'm just gonna tell a quick story. My mom's gonna come up, and then we're doing a song, and after that, everyone is dismissed. When I was going to school for philosophy in Boston, I came back home after that first semester for Christmas. And school had been pretty tough for me. It was a lonely time, and I was reading too much French philosophy, so I was feeling very existential, and I was wondering, what is the point in life? And will I find a purpose? And is purpose even something that exists? And one night after dinner, my dad and I went outside for a little whiskey and a smoke, and I laid all of my struggles out to him. I gave him a good talking to, and he listened. He didn't interrupt, and then, as was his way, when I finished, he was just quiet. And I remember thinking, hoping, this guy's gonna give me something profoundly helpful. And then he broke his silence and he said, almost flippantly, "You should just get married." And I was so mad. I had just told him about all my hurts, and he comes up with this grand solution to just get married. And by the way, like, I was not dating somebody. I also wasn't trying to. That's not what I was complaining about. And I said to him, "Hey, did you even hear what I said? Are you kidding?" And he thought for a second, and he said, "No, I am serious." And then he went on to recount how when he was 20 years old, he had just gotten married. He was getting a sociology degree, and all of a sudden he felt like, oh crap, I need to make some money. And so in his mind, the fastest way to do that was to switch and get his education degree. So he went and did that. And the next thing for him to do in his mind was to get his administrator's degree. And that was the way that my dad operated. What's the next thing in front of me? What's the right thing in front of me to do? And so when he went to Alaska, when he came to Vail, and it was just one school, all of those were just the next right thing. In other words, getting married started the flywheel of his life and his career because it created the necessity for action, and especially action for others. My dad, he always had a deep sense of duty to do the right thing. And he continuously put himself in situations where he was going to be busy, oftentimes very busy, doing many right things. You know, if the church asked him to help with a youth program or serve on a committee, he said yes. And if a friend or a family member needed a car, as people talked about, he'd spend hours, he'd drive across states to deliver it. If it was broken or someone was out of their depths on a house project, he'd come over on the weekend and get to work. If he was invited to talk to leaders and encourage them, or to lead a discussion, or even to help another school district or a group to find their purpose and their values, he would always do that. And he would pour himself into it, not unlike his dad, committing to sing at every funeral or wedding he was asked to, even in the middle of his harvest. And my dad was always in the middle of harvest. You know, when my dad told me that I should just get married, it actually turned out to be pretty good advice in the long run. But it wasn't just advice that he was giving me, it was also a testimony. Because really what he was saying is that he owed all of the good things, anything that could be called good in his life, anything that could be called success, to a very inspired decision to marry a firebrand woman, his flywheel and his catalyst, who's my mom. She has a few words to share with you.
Okay, first of all, Madison, where are you? Because you promised that you were going to come and stand next to me. Do you remember? You guys are really lucky because I feel like I don't have to tell you anything about who Calvin was, because everybody has done such an incredible job about that. No, okay, thanks. So anyway, that at least makes my talk quite a bit shorter. What I want to tell you about instead is I want to just give you a couple of glimpses into his life. One of the things that made Calvin who he was the fact that God gifted him with wisdom, insight, compassion, and strength. So there were mornings when I would go into the bedroom to tell him that breakfast was on the table, and I would find him still in bed, laying face down, with his head resting on his folded hands. And then I knew that he had some important decision to make, or a situation that he wasn't sure how to handle, or maybe, and frequently, a person that he was concerned about. And he was talking to God. On those mornings, I never said to him, "Are you kidding me? You're still in bed?" But instead, I would quietly close the door and we would have breakfast without him. Also, inadvertently, we, his family, provided the opportunities for him to grow in humility. He was stuck with a wife who actually had a warped sense of humor. More on that later. And kids who were normal and naughty. Like the time Cal ended up helping a son clean toilets at school because that son had filled them with sand. And most of our married life, as you've heard, we had additional people living with us. Often that included little ones. So frequently, Cal left for work with a final hug from a little person and jam on his shoulder or a little splash of burp down his back. And enter the warped sense of humor. I confess occasionally, he would be all dressed up for a meeting with a little hickey just barely below his collar. Most kids and I loved Cal. And because of that, we gave him space and time to be who God intended him to be in his work and in your lives. And that way, Cal's accomplishments and impact belong to us. That's why when I look out over this crowd, I look through his eyes and I see a huge family. On December 26th, I sat beside Cal with all of our children gathered around. For nearly 10 hours, we supported and loved him while his indomitable spirit fought and struggled. Not to stay, but to leave. Then, in a final breath, that familiar, well-loved body was empty. Kelvin had left the room. We knew where he went. I just didn't know that it would feel so permanent. And his absence is overwhelming. There's a tendency for me to look around and think to myself, who's going to carry on his work? But that's not wise. Cal's work is completed. However, the work uniquely designed for me and for you has yet to be finished. God offers to us the same gifting and the same unique opportunities for what we need to do as he did for Cal. I look around this room and I am so proud of all of you. Your lives are difficult, incredibly busy, fraught with conflict and stress, as was Cal's. But like Cal, you are making a difference. You are living lives that are worth living. First in your own homes, then in your neighborhoods, your schools, the community, our state, and that's the way we change the world. We came here to celebrate. We have celebrated a man who was fully loved, well loved, and a man who lived well, a life well lived. But we also celebrated a God who was overseeing, who knew what was happening, who orchestrated, empowered, and changed the world through us. And now I look at what comes next and I just think to myself, I don't know how I'm going to go forward without him, but I know that I have a shepherd and I shall not want.
My Uncle Cal was not opposed to hard work. He was not opposed to labor or being under a heavy burden, because he had heard the call of Jesus. Come to me, all you who labor and are weary, and I will give you rest. My Uncle Cal knew that there was rest in the labor. He knew that there was rest in the hard work when you're doing that work unto the Lord. And he fought hard. And now finally, he's experiencing all the rest the rest of the rest in the arms of Jesus. When this life is over, I'm gonna live again. Gonna trade my cross for a crown. Oh, this is not the end. When you call my name, I will take my rest. There's a mansion in glory, and you're gonna meet me there. I shall not want, I shall not want. He will wipe every tear from my eyes. I shall not want. No, I shall not want. I shall not want. I'll be home in His presence, and I shall not want. For the Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. I got goodness, and I got mercy. Hallelujah, glory, hallelujah. I got goodness, and I got mercy. Hallelujah, glory, hallelujah. And I got goodness, I got mercy. Hallelujah, glory, hallelujah. I got goodness, and I got mercy. Hallelujah, glory, hallelujah. Hallelujah, glory, hallelujah.
Thank you, Lord, for this time. We give you praise and glory. Amen. All right, boys, it's time. We have one last thing, and dance, and if you don't like it, well, Somerset was okay. So we know who to ask. It's not any of the boys. So we wanted to have you all stand and join us in singing a song for Cal. Can we get any of the grandkids that are willing to join us up here? It's just a shame no one in this family is good looking. Come on, guys, all the way over here. All right, are we ready? Two more. The Stragglers. Okay, now we're ready? Are those guys going to the bathroom or are they coming up here too? Yeah, nobody's waiting or anything, guys. Take your time. Sure, good looking. All right, let's all join and sing this together for Cal.
Oh, skidamarinka-dinka-dink, skidamarinka-doo. I love you.
Sing it louder.
Skidamarinka-dinka-dink, skidamarinka-doo. I love you.
You will finish.
Skidamarinka-dinka-dink, skidamarinka-doo. I love you.
Now this time with We Love You.
Skidamarinka-dinka-dink, skidamarinka-doo. We love you.
Yeah. Give him a hand. You guys can join us off stage. Thanks everyone for coming. Thanks for celebrating. Have a great evening.
Uh-oh.